There was a little bit of a question, which is not really a question because I didn't think about it. But then I opened the Sikha that they brought here in a footnote, and I saw the answer. The question was that we read here that you have to first have bittul, sul merah, he called it, refraining from evil.
Where's this in the Sikha?
No, this is what we read in Torah Or. Yesterday,
Okay.
remember?
Yeah.
So we said, if you look at it, it says,
Which page is which?
כי בלתי אפשרי להגיע לבחינת הוויה דלעילא.
Which page?
we're סמך בית א'.
Samach Bet
א'.
Okay, where?
So just before the והנה ישראל ראו את היד הגדולה, which is a new issue. So just before that, about 5 lines up, 6 lines, whatever it is there.
Okay, yeah.
It says, כי בלתי אפשרי להגיע לבחינת הוויה דלעילא, כי אם על ידי איסור מרע, בחינת ביטול וצמצום, לאו קודם להן, י"ק עם שמי, שסה, and so on. So we explained this yesterday.
So Sumera comes before
Aseh Tov. So we said that that's what it says in the verse. Sur mera v'aseh tov.
Right, but
it says it 3 times. But the Baal Shem Tov taught that first you should do aseh tov, u'mimele yasur mera. Do good, and as a result, it will be refraining from evil. But don't focus on refraining from evil because that's starting off on the right foot, on the wrong foot in our generations.
Summarized as think positive.
It's a little bit different, but it's close. It's close to the same thing. So the question was, why does he here say that you should first have sur mera, okay?
Yeah.
And then, only then can you see the higher havaya, the havaya that is the faith, as we said.
Because what the Baal Shem Tov says about Aseh Tov is a preparation for Sur Mera. It's still Sur Mera first. But if you want to get to Sur Mera, given that it's a very hard thing to do, so the first thing to do...
So why here don't you need the preparation?
Because there was a different age. In this age, it's a different world.
No. He's very committed to what the Baal Shem Tov said. So the answer is very simple. So here they send you to a Sikha that's on Chelek, what Chelek do I have here? Lamed Vav. Okay? On page 98.
That's Martin. When's Lamed Vav? That's...
I don't know. It doesn't matter. In any case, the Rebbe here talks about that there's a issue that the Alter Rebbe also brings, that after Matan Torah, after the Torah was given in Mount Sinai, the first mitzvah that we heard was Elokei Masecha Lo Ta'asuniti. It was a lo ta'aseh. It was a prohibitive mitzvah.
Where's that?
Right after Ma'amad al Sinai in Parshas Yitro. We'll read it in a week.
Yeah.
The first mitzvah after the 10 Commandments, after the whole...
When they're still standing there, or they've moved away?
Apparently, it's still standing there. Not standing. It doesn't matter. But the first thing that the Torah brings after that is a prohibitive mitzvah, not to make an idol that's like a face mask.
But you already had that in the Sersa Dibras.
This is different.
What's the difference?
I don't know. When we'll get to it, I'll know. Right now, I don't know.
Okay.
And then after that, only after it gives a prohibitive mitzvah. You're missing the point. The point is that it starts with lo ta'aseh, and then the next mitzvah is mizbeach adamat aseri, and only then do you have an aseh.
A positive mitzvah. Okay.
So he says that's an example that you first have to have lo ta'aseh, and then aseh. That's really what he's referring to here when he says. So it's the same thing as sur mera v'aseh tov. But this is different. The difference is that when you say...
Where's the Baal Shem Tov here?
It's not. Again.
You said the Baal Shem Tov says start off with Aseh Tov.
So how do we explain it? So the difference is very simple. When you're talking about fixing yourself, correcting your behavior, how you are, and so on and so forth, by that, in reference to yourself, you first have to do good. And then you can, b'derech hagav, in order not to get too depressed about how badly you are, how badly poorly you're behaving, the poor behavior will go away by itself. But you, when you deal with yourself, when you deal with midos, when you deal with the lower part of your psyche, which is your behavior and your emotions, there you have to stress the good in order to get rid of the evil. And that's what the Baal Shem Tov taught about. Here he's talking about knowing Hashem. That's something completely different. That's in the intellect. When you come to know Hashem, when you want to connect to knowledge of God, there you have to be clean before. And so therefore, there has to be bittul before you can come to any kind of knowledge of God. And that's the difference between it. It's ben adam la'atzmo and ben adam la'makom.
But how do you fit in with the union of Hamaisa U'Aika? And you first have to fix yourself up.
It could be that you first. That would be the bittul. That could be the bittul. That you fix yourself before you come into knowing God. That's again. There's two parts to religion, if you want. There's the behavioristic normalization aspect, which is that you should be a mensch, you should be a human being. And then there's beyond the fact that you're a human being, you should also delve into theology. You should know God. And sometimes for the higher level,
to understand Hashem.
So
if it doesn't come with any positive action afterwards, if nothing happens because of it,
that's already a different question.
That's
a different question. That's already what are the repercussions? But you see the difference. The difference is that when you're dealing with yourself, that's what the Baal Shem Tov said.
Dealing with yourself.
No, why? When you're coming to knowledge, that's already chokhmah and bina. That's not your midos.
It's my chokhmah.
It's not exactly your chokhmah. All the knowledge.
The midos are not exactly my midos.
No, the midos are your midos. That's where the separation really is. In the midos, you're separate. In the midos, you're different. You feel separate. In the mind,
you and I don't think the same way.
Yeah, we do. We both know that 1 + 1 = 2.
That's not thinking.
Yeah, it is.
That's reciting something by rote.
No, you understand that it's that way. You're not just reciting it. You understand.
I'm sure there's very few people in the world who know why 1 and 1 has to make 2.
It turns out that nobody knows, but it's not the point. We all understand it. It's not just that we're reciting it. We're not like a monkey saying it. We understand it. And when you learn a blot of Gemara, when you're learning Talmud, so also the same thing. There's a correct understanding and an incorrect understanding. And you understand when you correctly understand. And you feel it when you don't correctly understand it. So there's a level of understanding that is understanding. It's not just reciting something. I could recite the page of Gemara and not understand what I'm saying, which I do a lot because I have to cover a lot of ground.
Okay, then that's not called learning.
But that's good. That's from above. But to understand, when you understand, you understand. So still, even in understanding, there can be levels and so on. But again, when it comes to knowing Hashem, so when it comes to here, what he's talking about is coming to know. So there you first have to remove the inaccuracies. You have to remove, you have to be bebittul. You can't begin to understand God if you have no self-nullification.
But you become bittul by removing the ola. The separates between you and Hashem.
What do you call it here? The breaking up the wood. You have to chop up the wood to set fire to it. You have to chop up your feeling of yeshus, your feeling of self. That has to be. Otherwise, you'll never come to know Hashem. And therefore, there are no shortcuts, or there's no changing the order. You just have to do it this way. Okay. Anyway, so let's continue because otherwise we'll not.
No, it's a very interesting subject.
Good. So,
very important subject.
Good. Continue with the.
I wanted to write that out for me.
So, I'll write it out.
Listen.
I'll try. V'nei Israel ראו את היד הגדולה. Now, the Jewish people saw the great hand, al yedei kriyat Yam Suf. So, Yad HaGdolah is very interesting. They saw the great hand. What are you talking about? What hand? So, there's many explanations of what this hand is. I'm just going to say something that he's going to come to at the end, so therefore I'm going to say it now. Because he enters into a whole sugya in Kabbalah, which is the relationship between the name of 42 letters and the name of 72, which is very prominent in this parsha. And it becomes even more prominent in the next parsha, in Yitro. But in this parsha, it's very prominent because there are 3 hands mentioned in this parsha. Yad Chazaka, Yad Gdola, Yad Rama. 3 hands. And hand, yad, is equal to 14. When you multiply by 3, you get 42. So that's called the name of 42. There's another reference to 42 after the parting of the Red Sea, after they came out of the Red Sea. This is before the Red Sea. Before the Red Sea, these are the hands that God showed them in Egypt, the Yad Chazakah, the Yad Gdolah that he showed them, that we learned about last week. And now they're going to see also the Yad Ramah. Uvnei Yisrael yotzim beyad Ramah. They come out.
Reish Gilei.
Okay, Reish Gilei. So these three hands, they relate to the name with which the world was created. It's called the name of 42 letters.
Why do you call it three separate hands? Why don't you
Because
just
that's how it's
all
mentioned.
the same hand, but it's just a different description of it?
If it's a different description, so it's three different aspects.
Aspect, yeah, but not different hand.
It is.
I can use this hand to give you tzedakah. I can use this
Nachon.
hand to slap a child when he's naughty.
And yet even you have two
two
hands.
right?
And even you have two hands.
Right, but
So
it's
it's not
still
the same
hand.
No, because you use your right to bring somebody close, and you use your left to push them away. They're separated. They're not. They're asymmetric. Sorry, they're symmetric, which means that they're not the same. There's no transformation in our world. You could take your right hand and turn it into your left hand. You can't do it in this world.
Well, I'm
You need another
so
dimension.
I'm iter yad, so that's
What?
I'm iter yad,
So am I.
so it's opposite. Oh, you're left-handed.
Okay. So there's no way to transform this into this in our world. You need another dimension to move it through. If you think about it by doing with a pencil something that has two dimensions, think about what that means. But there's no symmetry is one of the deepest concepts in physics, in general in science, but it's also in Torah. It's one of the. Where's the third hand then? Somebody would ask. Where's so you just said a second ago, Bereish Gelei. What does that mean? No.
A revealed hand.
No.
Then
Yeah, you know what the word Bereish means.
you have the head.
Yeah, it's your head. Your head is the third hand. If you don't get that, then think about a star, a sea star.
Oh, what star?
You know, in the ocean there are these stars.
Yeah.
How many hands do they have?
I don't know. I never was on the sea, doing navigation.
You see that
on stars.
there's 5. No, I'm talking about the ones in the ocean. In the ocean, the things on the bottom of the ocean. They look like 5-pointed stars.
I've never
They're
seen
creatures. Yes, you see.
Ah, you mean starfish.
Yeah, starfish.
Okay.
So starfish has how many hands?
5.
5. And almost all the creatures in the world. This is a big deal in biology. Nobody knows why. Okay? But almost all the creatures in the world, the advanced creatures, have 5 hands.
5 fingers.
That also, but no, most of them don't. We're very complex in that sense. Even our hands are like our bodies. They reflect our bodies. But most creatures don't. But what do most creatures have? Mammals and birds, and
legs.
they have 2 legs and 2 arms and a head.
Okay.
And the understanding is
Not fishes.
that the head,
Not for mammalian fish.
fish are not mammalian.
They are whales.
Whales do.
They don't.
They do.
They don't have legs.
Their legs joined into the back. That's what they claim. Okay, and then they have the 2 fins in the front, and they have the head. So they say almost everything that's advanced came from something that had 5 parts to it. In any case, the connection.
It was the same creator. Why are you surprised?
It's a pattern that repeats. In Torah, where are the 5? So the explanation is that there are 3 hands. This is a hand, this is a hand, and this is a hand. And this
Why
one's
do you
called
call
the
it a
revealed
hand?
hand. Reish Gelei. Okay, in any case, we're doing this too long because we're not going to finish. But the point is,
Oh, but it's very important.
it's not, it's maybe a little interesting, but it's not so important. The important thing is what he's going to say at the end. The important thing, this is related to creation. That these 42, 3 times 14 is equal to 42. They're the first 42 letters of the Torah, Bereshis until Bet Hey of Bohu. And those 42 letters, under different transformations, they give you the Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Yud, Taf, Tzadik, and the whole name of 42 letters. That was until the parting of the Red Sea. But after the parting of the Red Sea, something else, to part the Red Sea, Hashem had to reveal something that's above creation. Okay? Something that's beyond creation. And that's the name of 72. So we'll see it at the end. He'll say something very interesting about it. So I'm just mentioning it here because he says that in order to that before the parting of the Red Sea, or through the parting of the Red Sea, they saw the great hand. Meaning they began to see this idea of creation parting. The power of creation parted. What's going on here? The creation, as we said, is already taking God's will and contracting it into creating a physical world, a limited world. So when he parted the sea, what he showed them was what is beyond the physical world. Meaning he showed them the higher Havaya. He showed them the first Havaya. We all know that that's what he did. Yam ubchinat alma deitkasya. The sea represents the concealed world, which is the first Havaya. Kol ma sheyesh b'yabasha yesh bayam. Everything that is on the earth also exists in the ocean. What are Chazal trying to say? What are the sages trying to say? They became biologists and they checked all the creatures in the ocean. I don't know if they did or they didn't.
They didn't need to
But
do
what
that.
they did was, what they said was that it is a complete repetition. It's a copy.
Universe of its own, same as our universe.
It's the same universe, but it's the same. It's built the same. What's the difference? And one is concealed and one is revealed. That was their point. The point is that whatever is in the ocean, is on the earth that you can see, which is revealed, also exists in the concealed reality. Uvirotam, and it also exists in the Alma Deidgalia, in the revealed reality. Uvirotam shuit barach hafach yam leyabasha v'yasem et hayam lecharava. And when the Jewish people saw that God had turned the ocean into dry land, he made the ocean dry, blishum lachluchit, even without any kind of what do you say?
Drop of water.
Lachut,
No moisture.
moisture. No moisture at all. B'chinati kavu hamayim v'tereya yabasha. That the waters should part and the earth should be seen. The dry land should be seen. Haeminu ba'avaya sheyachol להיות התגלות בחינת הוויה דיללה שהוא בחינת עלמא דאיטקסיה. Then they believed in what we call Havaya, the first Havaya, the concealed part of God. They had to see the parting. They had to see that this was happening. So now he gives us the play on words. Really, when it says Vayiru ha'am et Hashem, that the people feared God, it can also be read, even though grammatically it would be wrong, but it can also be read, and a lot of people would read it this way. They saw God, and then they believed in Havaya. Okay. So there's two Havayas here. Vayiru et ha'am et Havaya. The people feared or saw, again, grammatically incorrect, but still the same word. Vayiru ha'am et Havaya means they feared the first Havaya, the revealed Havaya, and because they feared the revealed Havaya, therefore they could believe in the higher Havaya. The one that Paro, we read yesterday, said, I don't believe in him. I don't know him. But now they believed in it because they saw the parting. Meaning, what did they see? They saw that behind all of reality, this is like a precursor to the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. At Mount Sinai, the heavens opened. At the parting of the Red Sea, the ocean opened. In both cases, what you're getting is a glimpse of the fact that behind what you experience as reality is a deeper reality. That's the point. They feared Havaya, the first one, that's the lower Havaya, Alma Deidgalia, the revealed reality, which a person can perceive, and therefore, why is the pasuk saying they feared? Because something that you see, you can fear. If you can't see it, you can't fear it.
You don't have fear of heaven. You don't have fear of Hashem. You do. You don't see Hashem. You don't see heaven.
Yeah, you do. Of course you do. That's
No.
why most people...
When we're sitting in this room,
No,
we
no.
see books and bricks and
The
walls.
first thing that a person fears is the patch. The first thing he fears is somebody's going to hurt him. He fears the punishment.
Okay.
That a person perceives. A punishment person, people understand what that
Said,
means.
but that doesn't mean you're seeing heaven.
No, from there
Seeing
you
the
abstract.
consequences.
No, what you're saying is that after I have fear of something perceptual, something that I can grasp, something that I experience, then I can abstract it to understand that it shouldn't be the punishment I'm fearing, it should be the one who's administering the punishment. But that's an abstraction.
Extrapolation.
Or extrapolation, but it's an abstraction because you don't see the one who's giving you the punishment. You just understand.
Okay, so
In the same way, nobody walks off a building. Why? You can't see gravity. You can't see it, but you
we
perceive
know
it.
about it.
But you perceived it.
you
in,
can't
right?
see the consequences.
That's extrapolation, because in the same way, that's not abstraction, that's extrapolation, because in the same way that when I drop something from the top of the building, I understand that I'll drop just as well. I'm no different than the object that I threw.
No, that's 1 and 1 is 2. That's exactly the same.
That's extrapolation.
But you call the sea the hidden world. And you call this world above the sea the revealed world.
Why? Opposite. What I see,
The sea
no
is
pun
hidden.
intended, is hidden.
Right,
What's inside it. It needs to part for me to see what it's concealing.
right.
What
You
I
call it
perceive
earth.
is the earth.
Yeah,
That's
which is
the revealed
revealed.
reality.
Right.
Okay.
Well, why do you call the earth the revealed?
Because that's what I could
Because
come in contact
Shemaim
with.
is all hidden.
No.
So what? So what? Shemaim is like the sea.
Okay. In fact, that's the whole purpose of Tchelis. What do you see? You see the Tchelis, and the Kachol domeh layam, v'yam domeh l'shamayim. It's one of the basic things. Why is it's one of the very interesting physical questions. Why is the water in the ocean blue? Because it's not. It's
Appears to be.
appears to be. Why? Because mostly it reflects the sky. Okay. So somebody would say, it's just a coincidence. It's not just a coincidence, because the earth doesn't reflect the sky, even though the sky is just as much above the earth as it is above the ocean. So the ocean is meant, in the grand scheme of things, that's how Chazal understood it, how the sages understood it. The fact that they're similar is supposed to send you thinking. Why are they similar? Because they have, like we just said, they have something in common. Both of them represent the concealed. And they need to part for you to see what's behind the concealed. And that, what they saw, is the higher Havaya. And then, Vayaminu B'Avaya, then they could believe in it. Once they had seen it once, now they could believe it. But why is it not belief and not seeing? Because we understand that when it comes to the parting of the sea, that is not yet the higher reality. It's only an example of it. If you understand that the sea can part, then you can understand that everything could part. That hiding behind everything could be opened like a curtain. So the sea was just an example.
All well and good for the generation across the sea. They saw it.
Nachon?
But we didn't see it.
Vayaminu. Even they, that's what I'm saying, that even they could only believe. So what do we have? We have quantum physics, whatever you want. We've parted reality in many ways. We understand that there's something hidden behind reality. Again, the whole purpose here is to get you out of a literal state of mind. And in the literal state of mind, all there is what I see. There's nothing behind it. There's nothing hiding behind it. Even to understand that there were laws of physics required somebody to part reality. And not just to accept it as face value, that this is what there is. Okay? When you look at the science before the modern scientific revolution in the 16th century, so when you look at the science before, it was more literal. It was impossible for them to think that there were laws that had to do with mathematics hiding behind everyday events. The everyday events they ignored because they couldn't explain it, or their explanations weren't very satisfying. For us, that's the example of the parting of the ocean. In our generation, that's what everybody knows, that the world is not literally what you see. Now you can go crazy with this and become a conspiracist, that everybody's hiding something. Psychology is exactly that. That there's how the person presents himself, what Freud would call the superego, but there's the id behind all of this. There's how he is, the id, ID, the I, the lower I. And that is a very, and there were people who saw this lower eye and went crazy. Steckel was one of his most famous students, or friends, I don't know what to call him. He's the one that it's forbidden to say because somebody in the Chabad library took it out of the letters of the Rebbe Rashab. But the Rebbe Rashab went to see Steckel also. Doesn't matter. He saw.
See Freud.
He also went to see Steckel.
So what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. But in the Chabad library, they think you shouldn't say it. I don't know why. But we have proof, black and white. I have it on my computer. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, first of all, don't try to hide things because it's stupid. Eventually, everything's uncovered.
It's small-minded.
What? It's also, again, mochin the katmas. It's mamish, it's just ridiculous. Don't try to hide anything. Everything will be uncovered in the end. And it's not such a big deal. What do you want? So we went to see Steckel, so what?
Also was Jewish?
Yeah. They were all Jewish, all these guys. What I just learned, what I didn't know, is that Freud was married. His wife was the granddaughter of Aaron Marcus. That I didn't know.
Who's Aaron Marcus?
He's a very interesting figure in Vienna in the 1850s, 60s, 70s. Very interesting man. One of the most eclectic Talmidei Chachamim in Europe at the time. Yeah, and he became a chassid. He was trained in Austrian universities. He was a doctor of letters or whatever he studied. He had incredible knowledge of the ancient Middle East, and just incredible knowledge of languages. Knew a lot of languages, and he was very learned. He was frum, but he wasn't chassidish. In fact, he was very like like a yek. He was very rational. And then in the 1840s, 50s, he came in touch with Reb Shlomo Radomsk, and he became his chassid. And he spent the last 30 years of his life as a chassid explaining chassidus in a rational way. So he wrote one of the most interesting books ever on chassidus. It was in German, but it was translated since into Hebrew. I have it here. And it's very interesting. It has some historical inaccuracies because there wasn't much documentation, what you would call academic or really based research type of documentation about the history of Chassidus back then. So he made a few mistakes, slight mistakes, not very big, in his book. But his take on Chassidus, the way he understands it, is just amazing. I got a lot of points from him that are very interesting. So that I just learned a few weeks ago, that Freud's wife was his granddaughter. So anyway, that's a.
She was from?
I don't think so. She was probably more connected because of her grandfather, but not. Freud was already a completely assimilated family, but he married Jewish. I don't think his children did though. I don't think any of his children did. In any case, ולכן כתיב הגדול הגיבור והנורא, שלהיות בחינת נורא צריך להיות תחילה ו'. So he says that's why when we say in davening, הקל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, the great, the mighty, and the נורא is like the awful, but meaning inspiring awe. So before inspiring awe, it says v. It has the conjunctive and, the vav. Why? Sheliyot b'chinat norah. So for Hashem to be awful, in the sense of to awaken awe in the person, he has to be perceived. So for him to be perceived, there has to be a vav before, the conjunctive vav. Why? Because the vav looks like a conduit. It looks like a tzino. How do you say tzino? A pipe going from above to below. And that pipe is like God bringing down, it's like the same pipe that we have between the two Havayas, between the first Havaya, which is the concealed, and the revealed Havaya, which is the second. So this Vav is like drawing down God's presence into a way that it can be perceived. And that's why he can be called awful. Awful in the sense of awe-inspiring is only if you can perceive it. Uve Moshe Avdo. And then they believed, now we're coming to Moses, and then they believed in Moses, his servant. Why? Because Moshe הוא בחינת דת והתקשרות. כי משה משבעה רואים והוא הממשיך לכללות נשמות ישראל בחינת אמונה. Moses here is the Vav. He is the conduit between the concealed reality and the revealed reality. Moses is the unliteralist. He's the one who can see beyond reality. Okay. When you think about it, this is, I don't want to compare it, but it's almost impossible not to. You know that in Islam, they have this thing that Muhammad couldn't read or write. Why? Because it's so important for them that he wrote exactly what he was told to write. He couldn't change it because he couldn't even understand what he was reading. Meaning he was given the book and he couldn't read it. He couldn't change anything. They have this thing. By Yiddishkeit, it's exactly the opposite. That the only reason that Moshe Rabbeinu could write the Torah from Hashem was because he saw beyond, not only that he knew how to read and write, but he was beyond the literal. Because he could see the concealed world behind the revealed world. To say it another way, then in Shabbos, in the Talmud, it says that when Moshe came up to heaven, right, this is how the sages say this. They say he came up to heaven, and then the angels wanted to throw him down. What are you doing here? You're a literalist. You belong down there in the revealed world. What are you doing up here? How did you come to think these thoughts? So Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't know what to do. Hashem saves him. Hashem says, hold on to the Kisei HaKavod, hold on to my throne of glory, and then they won't be able to throw you down. But then the angels come with all these arguments why God should not give the Torah to man. And they say, even this guy, Moses, that you love so much, he's like all the men. He'll change it. He'll what's the word? He will, it's not just change, he'll ruin it. Hashem says, even if he changes, the changes that he makes, I sign after. It's exactly the opposite thing. The moment that you see into the concealed world, like Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem trusts you to explain it in any way you understand that you need to explain it. So even if you have to make a change, so that's a change that I accept. Why? Because what in the world did I send a human being down into the revealed world for, if not to explain the Torah that came from the higher world into this world? And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu does. He's the dat, he's the connection between these two worlds. But he's not just a connection, he's what we call a shepherd. And this shepherd, what does a shepherd do? So as he's called in the Zohar, and as he's called in other places, he's Raya Mehemna.
The faithful shepherd.
So either you translate it as the faithful shepherd, or you translate it as the shepherd of faith. Because he's shepherding faith. What does it mean to shepherd faith? To show you what's behind the words. To show you what's behind the ocean. To split it. To show you that there's something beyond this. To open the heavens. Moshe went up to heaven. What does it mean went up to heaven? He explained what's behind these words. And these words are only the revealed part, the revealed instance of this higher world that is beyond. And that is the essence of Chassidus. The essence of Chassidus is not to be a literalist. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be a literal. You should be. Because without literalism, there is no mitzvah. That's the thing that people don't get about Chassidus. On the one hand, you're so anti-literalist. On the other hand, you're so halachist. How does that work together? You don't understand. The literal is the literal. You can't change the literal. But when it comes to knowing God, you have to go beyond the literal. We said that that's the first part of the Guide to the Perplexed, of the Rambam. That you have to understand the meaning behind the words. It doesn't mean that the words aren't literal. They're also literal. But there's also a non-literal meaning. And when you want to understand God, you have to go beyond the literal. Okay. So he brings down faith. It says about him that he's the most faithful in my entire house. In Bamidbar, in Numbers 12:7. And he's the one, he's like the conduit, the pipe, the vav, the conjunctive and between the two worlds, between the world that's concealed and the reality that's revealed. And that's why the sages says, is
faith such a small
not
thing?
Faith, is awe, fear of God, such a small thing? Yir'ah milta zutota. It says, in legabei Moshe milta zutota hi. Yes, by Moses, it's a small thing. How does the Baal Shem Tov explain this? And here he's using the Baal Shem Tov's explanation. Sometimes he uses his explanation, sometimes he uses the Baal Shem Tov's. Baal Shem Tov's explanation is yes, when you see Moshe, no, he's using both here.
When you see Moshe, it becomes a small thing.
It becomes a small thing, but he's also using his, because his in the Tanya is that every person has Moshe inside of him. Every person has this conjunctive and inside. So we're not going to finish today, take it, right? You have to leave.
Yeah.
So we'll finish, God willing, tomorrow. We shouldn't have spent so much time on the 42.
No,
I don't know why I
I'll
did.
tell you why.
Yeah.
You won't be offended if I tell you. My grandfather Oliver Shulman used to say to me, when you're sitting playing cards, Chas v'sholem, this should happen, right? He says, if you start to lose, get up and walk away.
Yeah.
Don't stay there, because you'll just keep losing, right? If you're sitting there winning, just stay where you are.
Yeah.
So if you're winning, you go to a part of the Torah, which is gripping and enlightening and exciting. So you keep going, I find it very hard to concentrate for a long time. That's a problem. That's my nature. I'm ADHD. But this is,
He's gripping.
how many times did I tell you to write it down for me?
Write what down?
Such a summarize what you said in that sefer.
Ah.